Ladies and gentlemen, reaction. This is how did the USSR get its nuke? But history matters. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw this video in recommended feed, I thought like, wait a minute, this is an old video. I probably watched it, right? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is one of the newer ones. So I was seeing like how did certain country got its nuke, like India, China, things like that. But how did History Matters forgot to make a video about how did USSR of all countries got its nukes? Because it's like second country to get it, right? And this is one of the most like more dramatic way of analyzing this. Who knows? There might be some espionage involved. And I'm pretty sure like there was a saying like, okay, probably espionage was involved because after the Oppenheimer and their Manhattan Project, basically USSR got its nukes, so probably some peeking and shit was involved. I don't know, but as far as I know about nukes, first of all, people say then nuke, like first of all Manhattan Project, right? Oppenheimer, the movie and everything, like they came up with nuke, and that is true. They were the main brain behind it. But some people say like Einstein is also like the reason behind it, or kind of blame it. I don't know what it means to blame it, but Einstein didn't come up with the nuclear weapons. Einstein came up with the basic theory of fucking everything. So you can kind of like, put him on like this is your fault, E equals mc square, general relativity and shit like that. Maybe you can say that. Now, obviously he was the first guy to basically, think of the quantum world, because I'm pretty sure he called light as a, quanta, right? Quanta is what a quanta. Basically, the smallest, distance or something and travel in small size, basically quantum world, which we call now, photon, right? Planck basically came up with that, thing, and Einstein recognized that as that, right? He was the first guy, so he's like the one who basically thought of the quantum world, and then it just like grew from there, like how big quantum world is. Now, atomic bombs wouldn't exist without quantum world, because fission and all that process happens at that level, right? So in a way, E equals mc square, quantum mechanics, all that, without Einstein, this is not possible, right? So in that way, sure, blame Einstein. But if you're gonna do that, why the fuck not blame Newton as well? Because he was literally the start of everything, right? At least in this modern way, Einstein just expanded on him, right? So I don't get how Einstein is to blame. And what does that mean to blame? Okay, nuclear bombs are like deterrent, right? Look at the shit is happening right now, and there's a reason why the shit is happening with the countries that both countries don't have nukes, right? When the both countries have the nuke, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be war, because both are going to be somewhat nervous. Like, what if one is crazy and just launches? So deterrents work. And now we're going to see like how USSR got it. Maybe some peeking here and there, or, like Russia, USSR can be innovative, right? The rocket formula was from a Russian, right? The chemical table, right? The whole table is from a Russian. So Russians are like first at a lot of things, right? So maybe they came up with it. Who the fuck knows? So let's watch this one. Remember, people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. That way I know which type of videos to react to more. I love history, science and everything. Basically, if you watch my video, already know that. So, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can support this channel. More people can, see this as an impression or whatever it's called, recommendation on their feed. And yeah, comment down if you want to do any specific video. I'll eventually get to it. I'm starting to do more and more reaction now compared to before. So yeah, let's watch this one.
USSR was notably the second nation
Why is a chemical table, periodic table? Yeah, I think, I'm sleep deprived, I guess. I don't
build
know.
and detonate nuclear weapons, with them following the United States by 4 years. But given the devastation that the USSR had suffered during the Second World War, how did it build such an expensive weapon?
Look
How
at
did
how
the
happy he
Soviet
is.
Union get its first nukes? So, as most of you will know, the idea of splitting the atom and making nuclear weapons was not a new one as of 1945. The problem was that the process would be incredibly expensive, and the USSR didn't exactly have a lot of spare change. As such, no nuclear program would be...
Wait a minute, did he just skip on the part like, okay, it's not like Manhattan Project was like tightly sealed project. Like, did they came up with themselves, or did they did some peeking and just sped up the process? Like, this is the type of information that I like to know, basically. Or maybe nobody knows that. That's the point. I don't know, because ingenious things cannot be stopped. Like calculus, Newton came up with it, but at the same time some other guy came up with it too, because people think like, how is calculus is the thing that both came up with? Is there some fishy there? No, that's not the case, right? Wherever they were stuck, in order to get forward, they needed a system which is calculus. So if both of them were smart enough and tried to figure out how to approach this, they would have come up with calculus just like they did. So it's not really like, conspiracy type of thing.
Begin in earnest until the Germans were defeated. But that doesn't mean that the Soviets weren't on the lookout for other nations trying to build the bomb. And it didn't take long for the USSR to work out that the Americans were trying to build one. The first way they learned was that American scientists stopped publishing papers on nuclear topics. And the second way was good old-fashioned espionage, notably by the British delegation to the American nuclear project who would report back to Moscow. So it's that simple, right? The Soviets simply stole all of the details from the Americans and reverse-engineered the bomb 4 years later. Alas, no.
I was jumping the gun apparently because I was to come. Of course, they copied it. I'm pretty sure I remember that. Like they just did the espionage and just copy paste it. Pretty sure I remember that from somewhere.
Whilst the USSR did make use of spies and informants embedded in the Manhattan Project, that doesn't mean that they trusted a single word that they said. The USSR's nuclear program at first fell under Lavrenti Beria, the head of Soviet intelligence. And he was, to be frank, quite paranoid, which was understandable given that he'd only gotten his job after his predecessor had gotten thoroughly Stalined. As such, he didn't want to make any mistakes and so, for the most part, assumed that the Allies were using double agents to feed him misinformation.
God, Stalin was insane. Like, erasing from memory, that's just like, this is just straight out like some sci-fi TV show or something. Like, oh, fuck me, this is X-Files. What the hell?
With that in mind, Soviet scientists were tasked with trying to figure out the theory of the bomb from scratch, and they weren't particularly hopeful. That was until Hiroshima and Nagasaki, at which point minds became much more focused. Stalin ordered that the project be massively scaled up and given any money that it needed, and these funds were taken from all across the Soviet budget. This was easy to justify for the Politburo's members because as far as they were concerned, if the USSR didn't build nuclear weapons, it was doomed. The problem for the USSR wasn't a lack of know-how or an issue with the logistics of such a large project. It was the lack of nuclear material. Uranium suitable for use in a bomb had been monopolized by the British and the Americans, and the USSR didn't know if there was any suitable uranium within its own borders, and thus it had to go with plutonium, which it had plenty of in the Urals, but mining it would be far too expensive after the destruction of the war. Not unless they could find a nearly unending source of cheap labour, that was. Oh, wait. So with the plutonium being mined, the program could go.
As soon as it's a cheap labour, I'm like, oh, here we go. They have abundance of that.
Ahead.
Hashtag Stalin, I guess.
Scientists were told to build the bomb from scratch, and the intelligence gathered from the United States was used to check the project's progress. The Soviets also made use of German scientists to help, who were borrowed after the war, but they were kept in a different facility away from everybody else. The project continued to grow until 1949, at which point more than...
when, millions of your people dies at a point where, female population literally is much higher than the male population, I guess you deserve to borrow some people, especially the, let's just say, blamed country.
500,000 people had contributed. And as the bomb got closer to completion, the Soviets decided to copy the American bomb casing instead of using their own. Because if it failed and the Americans found out, it would look embarrassing. The test worked, the Americans found out anyway, and after this the Cold War truly began in earnest, with both powers then racing to see who could build the first hydrogen bomb. I hope you enjoyed this episode, with a special thanks to my patrons.
Wait a minute, who built the first one? Was it like Castle Bravo was the first or Tsar Bomba? No, wait a minute, none of them were first, right? Somebody else was. But yeah, basically those were the hydrogen bombs. People are like, oh, but imagine if, how big hydrogen bomb would be compared to Tsar Bomba. Like, what the fuck do you think Tsar Bomba is? Right? And I had debates. Oh, there you go. I have debates about people like, there's no such thing as a thermonuclear bomb. It's not like fission bomb. There's no fusion bomb. Like, the fuck you on about? Of course there's a fusion bomb. Of course it uses a fission bomb, but it needs a heat, right? Fusion bomb is how sun works. It's more stable and this is unstable, but technically the same thing, right? And fusion will always have the immense energy. The whole universe works on a fusion energy, stars basically. Everything else is like meh, right? There are much powerful things, but a universe works on stars, which is fusion. Stable fusion, but nonetheless fusion. So fusion bomb, I still say always saying that people are this complex, like what is this type of bomb, black hole bomb, this and that. I understand all of that. But universe work on stars. Stars are fusion. So if you have power of fusion, you have potentially the most powerful weapon on the planet. We are not even like level 3 or level 2 civilization, and yet I feel like we have one of the most powerful weapon there is. It's like, we were primitive and we were like, cavemen, and we had fucking AK-47 then. This is what has happened to our, civilization. I still believe that. Maybe we stopped at Tsar Bomber. We don't have enough resources to make at that level. Maybe delivery system is not that sophisticated, and that could be like forbidden. But fusion bombs are insanely powerful. Like Tsar Bomber was supposed to be much stronger than it was. They could have made it even more stronger, but they stopped. They could make that like 1,000 or even like immense power of that bomb, right? Especially with latest technology, fusion bombs can be ridiculously powerful, like 1,000 Tsar bomb equivalent or more, right? But they stopped. So if we realize that there's an alien threat and we just like go ape shit with all the fusion bombs, it doesn't matter how powerful and advanced aliens are, unless they figure out to stop our rockets or something. Even then, like if we make them powerful, like basically nuke, doesn't matter how fast they stop it, we and they both are going to be screwed. It's just basically going to everybody's dead type of thing. But yeah. Alright, well, that was how did the USSR get its nuke espionage. This was the channel History Matters. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I was ranting about all the things, wasn't I? But it was somewhat connected, so why not? I guess I'll see you next time.